Welcome to the Exam 2 review. I've prepared the 8 most commonly missed questions so that we can go through and look at those in detail. Rather than use time in class, I've prepared this video and set of Chalk Talk sessions. I'm going to warn you, it may be a little rough. This is the first time I've done this type of thing, so please accept my apologies, but hopefully this is going to be useful for you. Now, if you have questions on any other questions on the exam, please get with me. Be happy to talk with you after class or during office hours. So, on with the show. The first question on our review is question 5 on version 1. It also is question 5 on version 2. So this question illustrates the relationship between prices and total revenue. As economists, we can predict, we can forecast the impact on total revenue with a change in price if we know how consumers are going to respond to a change in price. So here in this question we're asked what's going to happen to total revenue if there's a decrease in price and demand is inelastic. Well, let's remember what is inelastic. Inelastic suggests that consumers won't respond to a change in price. So that if there's a decrease in price, the quantity demanded is going to increase very slightly, just a small amount. So when we consider the impact on total revenue, we consider there's going to be a decrease in price and a slight increase in the quantity demanded. So let's try to think through in terms of words. What happens when we have a decrease in price? What's going to be the impact on total revenue? So there's going to be two impacts. We're going to see that because the price has dropped, we expect the total revenue is going to be a little less because prices for each item that's being sold is going to decrease. But we also know that the quantity is going to increase. Well, that's going to lead to total revenue increasing in this case. So if we know that consumers are inelastic, we know that this quantity demanded is going to be small. So we're going to have a small change in quantity demanded and a big change in price relatively. So the negative impact of the price is going to be greater than the positive impact from the quantity. So overall, we're going to see the total revenue overall is going to be going down. So the correct answer here is B. When demand is inelastic, a decrease in price will cause a decrease in total revenue. This question illustrates the stages of production. At low levels of production, as a firm increases its production, it's able to take advantage of economies of scale. So at quantities less than M, we see that with each additional item, we see that the average total cost gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So economies of scale suggest that firms are able to increase production and reduce their cost for each item that they're producing. So the correct answer in this question, at levels of output less than M, the firm experiences economies of scale. Question 23 on version 1 of the exam is question 40 on version 2. So here you're asked to illustrate total surplus. So let's remember what total surplus is. Total surplus is the combination of consumer surplus and producer surplus. So remember consumer surplus, that's the difference between how much someone is willing to pay for something and the price they actually pay. Visually, consumer surplus is the difference between the willingness to pay and the price level. So in this illustration, the consumer surplus is going to be this upper triangle. J, K, and N. The producer surplus is the difference between the price that a firm can charge in the market and their costs of production. The cost of production is described by the supply curve. In order to determine the producer surplus, we can look at the area of the triangle between the price level and the supply curve. So our producer surplus is this triangle P, K, N, and L. Okay. So the total surplus is just combining these. So it's just that large triangle J, N, and L. Another way to think through this problem is to consider this overall definition of total surplus. We learned that total surplus is the difference between the value to the consumers minus the cost of production. And the value to consumers is described by the demand curve. The cost of production is described by the supply curve. So it'll be that same large triangle. Question 26 from version 1 is question 28 on version 2. So producer surplus. So producer surplus is the difference between the price a firm can charge and their costs of production. So here, if the price is P1, the producer surplus is going to be this little triangle F. Correct answer is A. This question illustrates the difference between economic profit and accounting profit. Remember, economic profit is going to consider both implicit costs and explicit costs. So economic profit is going to be total revenue minus the sum of explicit costs plus implicit costs. Okay. So the two possibilities illustrated here, B and C, for economic profit, those are both incomplete. B only considers implicit costs, C only considers explicit costs. So neither one of those can be correct. Accounting profit doesn't consider implicit costs. It only considers explicit costs. So the correct answer is going to be A in this case. Question 32 on version 1, question 25 on version 2. Checking that you understand the meaning of explicit costs. Explicit costs are direct payments. Something comes from the cash register, comes from a checking account, something that's paid for. So let's go through these four different possible answers. So the first, the cost of foregone labor earnings for an entrepreneur. Well, we discussed this type of example in class when we discussed what would happen if a college instructor or a chemist would give up their livelihood to open up a pizza shop. So that's an illustration of foregone labor earnings. So that was an implicit cost. So we know A is not going to be a possible answer. Okay. B, lost opportunity to invest in capital markets when money is invested in one's business. Well, this illustrates the use of someone's money. Remember that in businesses, people give up their time, they give up their resources. So in a if someone's giving up the use of their money, this is going to be an illustration of an implicit cost, not an explicit cost. So that pretty much leaves us with just C, lease payments for the land. So this is an illustration of an explicit cost. Someone's paying for their land, much like Farmer Jack paid rent on his 5 acres of land. Question 34 on version 1 is question 1 on version 2. This is pure definition, the efficient scale of production for a firm. We illustrated that when we looked at the average total cost curve. The efficient scale is that quantity of goods that is at the bottom. Okay. the quantity that is efficient. At that quantity, average total costs are minimized. So the correct answer is D. Efficient scale of the firm is the quantity of output that minimizes average total cost. Excuse me, the correct answer is C. This question is a bit challenging. It requires you to take two steps to determine the correct answer. So first you need to consider what type of market response is illustrated if a decrease in price results in a decrease in revenue. Well, you've already illustrated that in the first question that we considered, and that illustrated that if there's an inelastic market response, a decrease in price will result in a decrease in revenue. So for the get-go, we know that we're dealing with an inelastic market. So we're dealing with an inelastic response. So looking at this list of price elasticities of demand, which one of them meets the description of an inelastic market? There's only one, and that's going to be A, where the price elasticity demand is 0.5, it's less than 1, illustrating that the product is inelastic. Well, that's the review. If you have any other questions, please get in touch with me. Thank you.